Morning, YouTube. Well, today I'm going to tour the Harriett Tubman house. You may remember Harriett Tubman was known as the Moses of her people. She was an escaped slave who went back down south, credited with helping 300 other escaped slaves to freedom. Notable figure in the Underground Railroad, and a lot of other things. So headed into the visitor center, and I'll get into a tour of the house soon, I hope. So Harriett Tubman was born around 1821, 1822, when she was a young girl, about 7. She witnessed there was when an enslaved man had run away, got cornered in a store that she was headed to. She was told by the overseer to help him tie him up. Somehow the man took off running. The overseer picked up a 2-pound weight, threw it at the man, missed him, hit her in the head, embedded part of the shawl she had on, and from that point on she had epileptic type seizures from that created when she was in a coma for a few days and no medical attention afterwards, just sent back out to the fields. So she was able to lead about 70 people documented out of enslavement in the South on up. And during the Civil War, she was a scout, a nurse, a cook, and she actually led a couple of raids with a couple hundred soldiers. So she was the only woman, much less the only black woman, to lead troops in battle in the Civil War. She lost no men during those 2 raids, and she never lost a passenger on the Underground Railroad. So quite the accomplishment. This is from 1887. Here on the property, Harriet over there, and some of the other residents. So behind me is Harriett Tubman's house. It was originally a wood structure, but that burned, and they built this brick one on the same foundations. We can't go in. They're restoring it, and hopefully it'll be open in 2018, 2019, so we'll be able to come back and tour that. The house sits on 7 acres of land. The original barn's still here. She had a pig farm, and at one point she'd go around and collect the garbage, use the slop to feed the pigs, and at one point some rat poison was either accidentally or on purpose put in, and she lost 40 pigs. So, but she continued on. Okay, so Harriet's house is right there. She had 7 acres of land, and then she found out that the neighboring property here, 25 acres, was up for an auction. So she went to the auction, and she was standing in the back, and every time, the way the story goes, every time there was a bid, this little voice from the back would yell $50. So $500, $50, $600, $50. Got up. She ended up buying this land and the house for $1,450. She turned this house into a home for the aged, where anybody was allowed. There's the home downtown or in Auburn, which is just up the road, but would not accept black people. So this was more or less for them, but would take anybody. Way back in, there was a building that had been used to house the brick makers, and so I think there was a brick making facility here at one point. But she turned that into an infirmary, named it for John Brown, and who was one of her heroes. She was actually it said was going to go on the raid to Harper's Ferry with him, but he fell ill and didn't, possibly from those epileptic type fits that would take her from time to time. But anyway, if she'd been there, she would have been captured along with everybody else and probably put to death. But so she named that for him. That's got destroyed in the 1940s for some reason, but you know, there you go. So she had this next door. She had 32 acres. She did deed this land to the church in town, African Methodist Episcopal Church, Zion Church, I think it was called. Deeded that to them. Her family, when she died, 2 years later, they sold that property. Other people have lived in that. The church still owns this. Not that long ago, people that own that offered to sell it back to the church, which they did. So now the church owns all of this. Has been running tours here since 1955, I believe. And it was only a couple years ago the National Park Service partnered with the church to, and they aren't taking over, but they are, by doing this, it means that it will be maintained in perpetuity. So, a good partnership. Well, that's about it for here. They won't let us take pictures inside, so, as I think I said. But I'm going to take off, go find a place to have some lunch and camp out for the night, and I'll see you down the road, YouTube. Bye.